Take your seat. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Would you please stand with me while we recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which the council member may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda prior to the council's vote. The mayor will ask if a citizen or council member wishes to have any specific item removed from the council agenda for discussion. Are there any?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item G, the approval of the August financial report, so we can get a brief report from Kelly Koski, our finance director.
Okay.
And then while I'm at it, I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Lucero.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Levy.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is citizen participation.
Mr. Mayor, can we do item G before we move on?
Okay, yeah. Kelly, would you please present some financial information?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. I just want to first say, if no one has told you yet, thank you so much for all of your participation in the budget process and the budget hearings. I know that was a very long day for everyone, but I feel like it was very productive, and you were a huge part of making that process run very smoothly, and I know staff, all the department heads really appreciated that, so thank you very much. Just a couple of highlights as we go through the financial statements that you have are through the end of August. As we can see, the revenues have continued to increase on the same trajectory that they have for the rest of the year. I have to say, with the 21 mid-year budget adjustment, all of the departments are doing really well with following the budget with those additions that were added back in. So I feel like everybody is on a really good track. Just a couple of highlights. Over in the general fund, under the city council budget, you'll notice that there is a loan payment for this building, and at the end of 21, that will be the final payment for that loan. So that will be paid off as we go into 2022. And then we also have the same thing when we take a look at the rec center fund. The final bond payment for the rec center will happen in December of 21. So we won't have that payment either moving forward into 2022. So I think that's a huge hurdle that we've gotten over, and yay us. 22 really is looking pretty bright. Does anybody have any questions?
I see no questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate that. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizen participation.
Mayor Mike,
Yes.
if we could get a motion on the approval of the expenditure vouchers before we move on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the August financial report.
Second.
Medina.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Lucero.
Aye.
Levy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, citizen participation. 6 citizens will be allotted time to address council. Are there any those wishing to address council tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Under presentations, the 3rd Street Pocket Park Project, City Attorney Mike Green.
Good evening. To start, there was a bit of a situation involving the Third Street Pocket Park and the creation of a community garden, a garden plot there. And as in conjunction with that, when we looked at the garden plot in the rec center, it didn't appear there was what we would call a facility use agreement defining how things were to be operated there. Facility use agreements are year to year, maybe 2 years. It's difficult to make them last for a long time. And so in looking at the Third Street Park and the rec center, I can't really take credit for this. It's a lot of Mark Boblet just saying, well, heck, why don't we do this as a city program? And so in order to have a viable garden program in the city, we need something that's more long-term, not short-term. Good Sam needs to be able to rely on a source of fresh food for its programs to provide food to the community and the citizens. So a facility use agreement is not necessarily a sustainable or long-term solution. So what is being proposed is that the city would create a gardening program as part of its Park and Recs program. And as somebody else suggested and used the words, not me, we would make the garden plots an amenity throughout the city as things developed, so that there could be a plot in quite a few neighborhoods allowing people to have access to gardening. What in general we would like to do, and I spoke with Rosa Diamond, and she looked at what's called the Community Gardens Common Ground website. We think we can just pretty much use that program, follow those guidelines with a few modifications, and move on, and keep things going. We have a few, and Good Sam would have to give me the head count. We have a few people from Good Sam who are already city volunteers, and so we would continue that with them. They would continue to run the program pretty much the way that it's going, but it would be a sustainable city program. They wouldn't have to have an insurance purchase or requirement, so because I say the vegetables would be less expensive for them to get to provide to the citizens. We would continue to have what's called a demonstration plot, which is where I guess those vegetables are grown. There would be a city plot that we would work into the playground days, which is already part of the program already. We'd continue with the lottery. There was a suggestion that perhaps a percentage of plots at 3rd Street and each other neighborhood park would be dedicated to the neighborhood. And I believe we have, I'm not going to say how this was done because I haven't seen the map yet, but there are neighborhoods created around some of these parks. So we would have some sort of geographic known as to who should be getting those priority plots. There's some money, but not a lot. I think people pay $7 a plot. That money would continue to be dedicated to the plots. It wouldn't just go into the city budget and go away. The city and Good Sam in some ways right now, and Good Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, but as somebody just coming in and looking at this, there's almost a partnership there already. I mean, of the city supplying materials, labor, helping create these plots. We supply the water, both irrigation and potable water, for example, at the rec center. What little electricity they might use might come out of a wall socket there. Nobody's really sure. That would continue at these other parks. You know, we continue to be, providing a source of food, fresh food to the community, to those people who need it, and running a viable, sustainable program for the city. The participants, the people that would win the lottery, so to speak, and get a garden plot, would not be volunteers, but just like other participants in city programs would sign what's called a waiver. And off we go, and we're set to let them garden. It looks like it would be a way to make sure we have a sustainable, long-term program for Good Sam to continue to do its job. Add a little bit to Parks and Recs, playground days, and maybe some other programs for the kids. And so staff and I talked to Boblet and Diamond, Mr. Sanders. We talked to planning to make sure I didn't mess with that dream, and it doesn't. It actually fits in with the requirements that the land use code has. And so talked with the people from Good Sam. We need to work out a few details, but staff is supportive of the idea of committing to a long-term sustainable city program instead of a facility use agreement for these community gardens or garden plots. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. With this agreement that you're talking about here, does that mean every park is going to have a garden?
No, but it could be if the neighborhood wanted it. I mean, that's part of the idea is it would be, as a program, it would be more sustainable. I think there's one park where we might not be able to put one because it's not zoned, and I think that's Rotary Park, if I remember correctly. But yes, if that's what the citizens wanted, if the citizens in the neighborhood didn't want it, that's something the Parks and Rec director would have to look at.
Okay, so for an example, on this 3rd Street, did the people in that area wanted it or not?
I don't know, sir. I'm going to be very honest. There was opposition came out after some sort of at least preliminary planning had been done for it. It's in existence. It's there. It's been built.
Yeah, but I wonder if it got built without, again, like what I understand from your memo thing is that it would have to be approved before by the residents, correct?
I don't think I meant that they would have to have a vote. I don't think I meant that, I meant it would be vetted by the residents. And yeah, if a lot of them didn't want it, I think that would have to be a consideration.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Councilmember, Mayor, if I might, this was somewhat vetted early on, but admittedly, the process was a little flawed on it, which resulted in the delay that we've experienced on this, among other things. But they did go and ask for neighborhood input. They only got minimal participation in that. And so far that, at least I'm aware of, we've got 2 rather vocal people who don't want it there, and who live very, very close to the park, by the way. And we've actually heard from one of those, or council has heard from one of those already. But in addition to that, we haven't really heard any opposition to it.
I just, I guess, would like to add a couple of ideas or thoughts I had brought up before to council, that potentially adding, in particular to the pocket parks, some playground equipment such as a slide, swing set, that sort of thing might also help to really beautify and make the park usable to a lot of people in the neighborhood, and that may assuage some of the any opposition that some neighbors might have to one or 2 uses for the park versus a park for everyone. And then just another thought, as we heard a presentation from Rachel and Shaq, personally, I would like to see, I'm looking at Mark, just kidding. I'm wondering if we used to have a Zurich garden demonstration over by the police station, and I wonder if we can sort of, advertise that, re-up it, so that, I think there are a lot of citizens with good intentions that would like to save water, and they're not quite sure how and what plants to plant, or, if they should gravel, that sort of thing. So I would just maybe recommend, as we're talking about gardens, maybe re-upping on a Zurich garden, a demonstration garden for the town.
Yeah, absolutely, and Mayor, Council, Councilmember Kefauver, yeah, absolutely, and if you recall, in our 5-year capital plan, we actually have some playground equipment that it's in there. It just won't be this year, or 2022. But as the other ones, I think those are absolutely attainable, and we can absolutely accomplish that. I'll work with Parks and Rec on that, do that. We may already have something like that going right next to the rec center, but we'll have to check. So,
One other thing that I don't remember mentioning, but if I did, I'm sorry. This doesn't appear to have any increased costs to the city, as when we talked about it with Mr. Boblet, because we're already providing water, potable and non-potable. We're already helping with creating the plots, materials, fencing, other things. So it's pretty much a continuation of what's going on as a city program.
I appreciate the work that staff's done to kind of formalize and fix the structure of the program so that it can work for the city, and that we have agreements in place. And particularly, I appreciate that to make sure that these are community parks and that there's space for the local community as part of that. So I think that's a really important part of it, is we want these parks and these features to be available to the people in those local communities. So thank you.
I guess my question is, because you said you talked to like the Parks Department, and did the community garden agree to this setup? Is that where this is coming from?
The 3rd Street Pocket Park piece that's in there, I believe the Parks and Rec people put it in along with the Good Sam people. And so that's how that got where it is and how it got built. As to the rest of this program, I've been working on this pretty much the last week and a half, and so we need to sit down and iron out a few details to make sure that there's everything we can think of is set, but it looks like this is good to go. If you look at the handout that I dropped on your places tonight, that's a pretty solid program. And when park staff looked at it, Ms. Diamond, she felt it was change a few words to make it a city program, stick pretty much with how it's run, unless there's something that needs changed, like anything, it develops, and we can move forward.
I guess what I'm asking is, I think this is like a good idea to potentially take like the liability off of a nonprofit, and having to raise money, but I just want to make sure that the volunteers are okay with this setup as well, and that I guess what they require is being met. And then also, this was an issue even before, this kind of scenario, but what do we do if there are no volunteers and the garden goes to disrepair? I mean, is park staff going to take care of it, or do we have a requirement from the Good Samaritan to produce volunteers? Or
We will not have an agreement with people, because this will be a city program. But what we'll have is city volunteers, and Good Sam folks are here, but it's sort of, and this is the lawyer in me speaking, this is they're getting the vegetables, they're getting the produce for their programs, and providing a couple volunteers to help run the program. So there's an exchange here going on, if you will, that works to the benefit of everybody. If something happens down the road where Good Sam is gone, then the city will have to look, and 5 years from now, I wouldn't know what the situation would be and what to tell you, other than maybe there would be somebody else step up. I don't think Good Sam is the first people to run the garden plot at the rec center. So I bet you there'd be somebody stepping in like Good Sam to take over Good Sam's place if they went. I'm trying to make sure they don't leave. I'm trying to make sure they got what they need so they stick around. But I don't know that we can plan for everything down to, something I don't know that's going to happen or how it's going to work.
Go ahead, David.
The people that are against this are, you're getting kickback from did they give any reason for, what are the reasons for not wanting this?
I have not spoken with them, so Mr. Sanders will.
Yeah, there's a myriad of problems that they brought up. One of the biggest ones that landed here that we had to take into consideration was the process was challenged on how it was done. And once I analyzed that, I had to agree that actually she was right. And that's what caused me to put the brakes on this, and we had to, make sure that the process was adequate. The other process or problem with it, not only did we have an inadequate process, but we were basically, at least in their eyes, and I could see where they might land with that conclusion, that we were turning a piece of public property over to a private interest to run. Now, that's arguable, but, perception's reality. And I could see it from their eyes at how they may arrive at that. And by the way, other members of the public as well. So we also had to stop it there and make sure that it was adequate and that we were doing this just right. As it turns out, we're able to run it like an amenity for the park. It works out better for everybody, and it is a model for the future in other parks if we choose to do that. So I would say about 95% of what the concern is has been taken away just by adequate process, new system, getting away from the perception of just turning it over to a private interest. And all of those have been met. I think some of the other ones, like traffic in my neighborhood, the things like that, I think any of us could get upset about that, an increased amount of traffic in front of my house, especially if I have children. From her eyes, that's very legitimate, and, I have to take that as very valid. Is it the end of the world, and is it gonna be 24/7? No, it's not. So we have to, be reasonable. We also have to consider that it's a public park, and those are public streets. That means anybody can go there, and so we have to consider that as well.
Thank you.
So I guess I just want to make sure the intention of the gardens is preserved. Or can we ask questions of, like the Good Sam or the volunteers here?
If they're willing to answer them, I think they're here to make sure what's going on.
Okay, please. Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, Reed. I guess I just first want some context of the expansion. Was the expansion because there was a wait list at the north side, or was it also because you wanted to target the neighborhood that the South Garden was going in?
Been our intention from the beginning to expand beyond the rec center. That was supposed to be a catalyst to more gardens in the city. That was our original intention. And did we target Third Street? No, because it was a decision between a number of people. And yes, we had a long wait list. If this garden could have been built this year, we would have filled it.
Okay.
I have no idea, honestly. I want to just state this. Because of the delays, I have no idea how many people are still interested.
Okay. Because looking at the economics of the north side of town and the south side of town, I would like to, personally make sure that the residents on the south side have access to good food as well and gardening opportunities. So if we stipulated that a certain portion go to either residents who live south of Maine or within 2,000 feet of the garden,
How big was our radius for the garden?
I have, that'd be hard one, Rachel. Certainly I like the idea, yes, but to define it, it would be harder. Right now, all but one of the people on our waiting list live south of Main Street.
And Ms. Diamond
Okay.
felt,
So,
Ms.
if
Diamond
our
felt she
9
could do
people on
that.
the waiting list, 8 of them would fit the broad definition you gave. But
Okay.
I can't
Well,
put in my head 2,000 feet from Third Street to know.
Can I jump in? So if it becomes our public program, wouldn't we have the say over how many plots get allocated to that neighborhood?
Yes, and we hadn't got to that number yet. Rosa and I, Ms. Diamond and I have been, playing a little bit of tag. And so we were looking at making sure we could have a neighborhood and get that information out to the Good Sam people. My understanding was there were some neighborhoods considered, created, whatever, when these parks were created for who they would serve. And so we might be able to go back into time and look at that or come up with something else. But it sounds like you've already got the answer. If most of the people waiting to get into a garden are from South Sea, then that sort of kind of shows who's going to get most use out of it.
Okay, and so then would that be the Parks Department who decides?
We'd run it the same way, but the Parks Department would be collecting the money, taking the applications. These folks in the Parks Department could run the lottery together. We haven't gotten down to everything, but the general mechanism would be the same. If these folks wanted to run the lottery, that's fine, they're volunteers. If they want input from Parks and Rec to help, yes, we'd have some supervision, some comments, but hopefully we can let most of this just continue the way it is.
Would they still be able to, like, say, raise funds or get grants to pay for things if there was a need?
I can't speak to every grant coming and going. If there's grants available that would allow for private government partnerships, so to speak, if they can get grants and we're eligible, it creates some eligibility questions in my mind.
Well, also that would mean that if it's our entity, like if it's within our jurisdiction, I guess, then we could also apply for grants on our side.
Through the Parks and Rec programs, I don't know why not. I think I sent some of you some information about a program Keene Shoe Company had, and they actually did a garden program over in Moab. So there's money available for things like this. I just don't know. I can't say, yeah, we qualify, because there's a lot of ifs out there with that right now.
Can they ask questions of us if they have them?
If you want,
Do you have any questions or concerns, I guess?
Could you please turn your microphone on up there?
It is on, isn't
The
it?
top one is? Oh.
So, I don't think we necessarily have questions right now. We're still kind of getting information from Mike and Drew and everything. As far as we could tell, it's still gonna run basically the way we've run it the last 4 years. But it's just sort of shifted into a program of the city as opposed to a project of the Good Samaritan Center. And by being a project of the Good Samaritan Center basically means we're the fiscal sponsor for the garden. And Reed and I started Common Ground, which is a garden program, as its own kind of entity being fiscally sponsored by the Good Samaritan. So I kind of do double duty now that I'm the pantry director, but we're considered city volunteers. We have been for 4 years to do the gardens. When we started 3rd Street, we met with Mike Levy and Mark Boblet and Dean, and we looked at some of the pocket parks to try to make room for this huge waiting list we had. And we definitely wanted to do it on the south side because a lot of people who were on the waiting list live there. So we ended up deciding on 3rd Street at the recommendation of the city. So that's kind of how that neighborhood got that park. And then before we made any decisions, we canvassed the area, knocked on how many houses?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Doors, 100 something?
6 people out knocking on doors for 2 hours. How many is that?
It's
It's
a
an
lot.
awful lot.
Yeah, over 100.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so we got feedback from the door-to-door conversations and all of that. So we didn't come up against any opposition then. And then we know of 2 people who were opposed that have been addressed.
And
Does that
yeah,
clarify
just
everything?
one other thing to clear up so you know how the community supported this. $7,800 was donated to this project. The materials are not being bought by the city except for plumbing, things underground. It was the city people here in Cortez who are paying for this.
Yeah.
Not out of a budget, not out of Parks and Rec. You know, maybe that, what I'm hearing is that might happen in the future.
Which would
It'd
be
be
great.
nice. Thank you very much. I don't have to raise all this money. But this particular garden is being paid for by people out of their pocket for small grants.
And I do think that with the volunteer question, who's responsible, what happens if Good Sam's explodes and we don't have any volunteers? Ultimately, Parks and Rec would be responsible, ultimately. But hopefully the reality is that we are building a community of people who are interested in gardening and will support it, obviously. So there are these people, and it's growing in the community and the neighborhood. The people who have plots are volunteers and will take care of the common space. I mean, if you build the gardens, I feel like we don't have to worry about them going fallow like in the past. There really is a strong community here that's willing to work hard and donate and make sure these gardens exist.
So I have two questions. So the first one is like, if there were the prospect of more gardens and more locations, would Good Sam's be interested in providing like educational opportunities at those different sites? And then second, do you guys feel that going into this partnership, you're able to preserve the essence of what the Common Grounds is?
We hope so.
You hit it right on the head. I don't know.
We're certainly, that's very important to us, so we'll make sure and work, do our best to make sure that continues. And yes, Good Samaritan and Common Ground would absolutely use those as opportunities for educational activities.
One of the things that I thought about sitting here is that for sure, being a small organization, your mission has probably changed or will change with this latest change with the city. And I thought about, you know, there could also be opportunities for outreach and education that, you know, not necessarily the people that are right there at the park, but educating people about you can have a garden at your house and this is what it looks like and this is the best spot. So maybe like in an education or advisory capacity in the city beyond those parks. It's just a thought that came to my mind about how you might shift, because it's a valuable organization and there are lots of things you can do. This is just, I hope to some degree, you can see this as a plus in terms of, you know, the long-term maintenance. The irrigation stuff just in and of itself is kind of expensive and a big project, so that would be nice to get behind you. So I hope that overall you feel positive about the change, and maybe the gears will start grinding in terms of how to expand in other ways, maybe?
Yeah, I think this partnership opens up a lot of possibilities that we haven't really even had time to think about because we've been trying to get everything laid out very clearly for the city. But yeah, I mean, if we want to affect food security at all, this is how we do it. So I'm excited about that.
So it sounds like we've got some things that need to be clarified, like.
Yes, ma'am, I'm not trying to tell you that everything is hunky-dory and worked out smooth. We have some things we got to work out. It's a new situation, and I don't think they're insurmountable or destructive of the concept. I think we can move forward.
So what direction would you guys like this evening?
I don't know if there's an action item on here. I think we're looking to get you some information and let you know we're moving forward, and maybe just a nod of the head if you think this is a positive thing and we should keep going. And that's, this is a little bit abnormal for council to approve what in essence is a facilities use agreement that would be normally, how do I want to say, approved by the director of Parks and Rec. But we won't, because of the situation, we wanted you aware. We wanted to see if you were accepting of it. If you're not, then okay, we're back to the drawing board. But if you think this is okay, it can be an informal poll to say, yes, let's move forward.
I mean, I would be interested to see it move forward, and I would like an update at the next meeting,
At which meeting?
at the next meeting if possible. Or is that too soon?
How about the meeting after, just to make sure we get time? There's a lot of stuff just started going on. I think we can have most of it worked out. I can't speak to everybody else's time schedule, because I need to sit down with Ms. Diamond and Mr. Bobbitt and come up with some answers. I need to sit down with these folks and make sure I understand all their, but yeah, we can try for next meeting. I can give you a report. Might not be maybe as far down the road as I want it to be, but we can give you a report for sure.
Yeah, I think this is a really worthwhile project, and thank you both for your passion for growing things and your expertise. I know you've both been gardening for a long time, and you're good teachers and inspiration people for encouraging gardens and making people healthier. And I think this is a proposition we should be able to work it out. It sounds like it's something we can work on.
I just have one more question. So if the city takes it over, if folks still want to donate to like this project specifically, can people do that?
That's what we want to actually promote and keep going. When we looked at this, we would know how much money came in, and so we would be able to account for that and dedicate it to this project.
Okay. I think also this is a great opportunity for folks to learn how to garden without committing to buying all the supplies and building it at their house, and a great place to volunteer and kind of gain those skills and then be empowered to grow their own food.
And just in some ways, what I think I'm hearing is this would be a little bit like a friends of type of thing, where if the Good Sam or the donations were to buy soil, to buy fertilizers or whatever is used, that's always something that can be done. It's like the Friends of the Library buying books for the library. It doesn't affect the budget, it doesn't affect anything, and we could continue that. It would be donating product instead of money, and I think that's, we can make that work.
Are we taking like public comment? Because I saw a hand in the audience.
It's the mayor's in charge.
Okay.
What are the feelings in the audience here? Pro?
Well, it looks like
For the
Colton has
pocket
something to say.
garden? The city involved in it? Pro? Are you for it? Yeah. Okay. Anybody against?
Well, Colton just looks like.
I just wanted to make a quick comment or kind of an assessment there. It sounds like.
Sir,
Can we have him go to the podium, please, and announce his name?
So I just wanted to make a quick comment. This program sounds great to me. So I'm Colton Black, Executive Director for Cortez Area Chamber of Commerce. It doesn't sound like this is really any different than any other rec program that Parks and Rec takes on in a lot of ways. And, to kind of an analogy to the volunteer aspect of it, most of our, rec programs rely on volunteer coaches, and they wouldn't survive without that aspect. Yet, somehow every year we find new coaches to coach our kids and be parts of those programs. So I think it's the same type of a concept, and then the city provides facilities, they provide balls and sporting equipment and stuff for those programs. So I don't think it's any different to do it for that type of a program versus a gardening program. So in a lot of ways I think makes a lot of sense. So I just kind of wanted to connect those dots for everybody, that in a lot of ways, it's not really any different than existing programs, so I think it makes sense to make it a park and rec program. So that was just kind of my, off-the-cuff assessment as I was sitting there, so just kind of wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. That sounds like a worthwhile endeavor.
I got one question.
Go ahead, Orlando.
How is this gonna affect our finance department? Is that gonna be more of a hassle?
That's an excellent question, council member. One of the things that we've run into just in the short time that I've been here is we have several committees in groups that are either friends of the library or the rec center, and they really would like for the finance department to be like a full-service accounting and reporting entity for them. At times it feels like there are very many of those friends of organizations that are out there. Certainly if that's what the council decides the finance department needs to do, I would just ask that we keep in mind the heavy load the finance department has at this time working through those audits. But we certainly would be willing to do, you know, whatever the council chooses.
And Mr. Lucero, I was looking at, they already have something of a structure in place, and continuing that as it is, and as long as they buy product and don't put money into the city general fund, then there really shouldn't be much consequences. The city's going to use about the same amount of water that we already use and pay for there. There didn't appear to be, when I spoke with staff, any additional increased costs that weren't taken care of through some donations or whatever, like the fencing was the only big thing. So most of the upkeep we're already paying for when we water the grass or we do things there like that.
Sounds like a workable solution. I think you should move forward on this. Any opposition?
And I'd like to thank council for your input, because you brought up a couple areas that we need to look at that I think will help us get forward on this much easier.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you very much
for
for
your
your
attention to
presentation.
this, council. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your input. Okay. Next item on the agenda is there are no public hearings. There are no unfinished businesses. Under new business, resolution number 25, series 2021. Associate Planner Neva Connolly, please. Good evening, Neva.
All right, good evening, Council and Mayor Levy. This project is pretty straightforward. I will say there is a typo here that I'll go over when I get to it. So the city's received an application from property owners Thomas and Sharon Cole and Daniel Hartman to adjust the center line boundary between lot 14 and 15 of the Fairway Estates. The proposal will move the property line between the properties several feet to the west. Lot 14, not lot 15, will gain 896 square feet with the adjustment. So that's the error on paper in the report. However, the plat map lines are correct. So that was just a mistake on my part there. The lot line adjustment will rectify a fence and irrigation line encroachment. These lots are zoned single-family residential. There's no new easements or no ingress or egress points proposed for the plat amendment. So it's just a simple property line shift of several feet. I think that's about it for this amended plat. The property owners are here. If you have any questions, now's the time.
And so setbacks will still be met with the lot line adjustment?
Correct, yeah. The
Okay.
structures will all meet the set line.
And
The
all
setbacks.
parties are in agreement in this?
Yes, yeah, I did not include it in the report, but they do have agreements signed, and they do have deeds ready to go, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, since all parties are in agreement, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 25, series 2021, approving the amended plats for lots 14 and 15 of the Fairway Estates PUD as submitted by Thomas and Sharon Cole and Daniel Hartman with 4 conditions.
Second.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Lucero.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Levy.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Airport Engineering Services Contract. Airport Manager Jeremy Patton. Good evening, Jeremy.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So I'll keep this pretty short and sweet. So the airport recently went out for an RFQ for the 5-year on-call engineering services. We recently had Jacobs that lapsed in 2018 into 19. At the completion of the AIP projects for the taxi lane and overlay that went into 20. Since then, we haven't had an on-call engineering. We are currently working with Armstrong for the master plan. And in accordance with FAA guidelines and grant assurances, we needed a 5-year agreement for engineering. So in doing so, we went through a process. The deadline was the 31st of August. 3 firms submitted on time: Dibble Engineering, Armstrong Consultants, and Garver Engineering. A period of 2 weeks was allocated for the standards of qualification review, and then we conducted interviews the week of 14 September. Based on the scoring matrix, and that's per Advisory Circular 5100, 150, 14E of the FAA advisory circulars, we scored the firms based on their SOQs and interviews and came to the conclusion that Garver excelled in that process. And if you look at the attached scoring matrix, you can see the breakdown and the summary of that scoring. So staff recommends the City Council approve an engineering services contract, which will be developed hereafter to start on the 1st of November and to expire 31 October 2026. And the fiscal impacts, I skipped over that. There are none at the moment, but those are relevant to airport improvement projects that the FAA approves, and we go out for grants and grant matches for.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Are there any questions from the council? Okay, sir.
Just thanks for including the scoring matrix so that
Yeah.
we can see.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Do I have a motion on this item?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve an engineering services contract with Garver Engineering for a period of 5 years, beginning the 1st of November 2021 through the 31st of October 2026.
Second.
Sorry, I think it's Mike's. Sorry about that. Thank you. Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Lucero.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Levy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Council. Have a good night.
Hey, Jeremy, I just wanted to say before you sit down that the fly-in was awesome. And I think that that's a perfect example of events that the city can kind of put forward and you know, sponsor, and I'm sure that it was a ton of work. So I congratulate you for pulling it off. There were a lot of people there, smiles all around. It was just really a high-quality event, so good job.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Councilman. Thanks for Mayor, you guys for attending. I appreciate all your input on it as well. So.
Thank you. Okay. Next item is a letter of support for the Montezuma County Historical Society's Rural Initiative Grant Application. City Manager Drew Sanders.
Mayor, City Council, we have a proposed letter of support for the Montezuma County Historical Society Rural Initiative Grant Application. Normally, this would be something that would either be run through my office or at least on the consent agenda. I understand we have somebody here that wishes to speak in favor of this. If we could recognize her and ask her to move to the podium.
Hi, council members and Mayor Levy.
Good evening.
Great to be here. I'm Barbara Stagg. I've been helping the effort to develop a history museum for Cortez and for Montezuma County for, two or 3 years now. And of course, I'm representing our board, our volunteers, our hundreds of local residents and area residents who have been donating to this effort and have been donating their important historic materials and so forth. And now finally, after being delayed by COVID, a full year almost, to renovate the building down on 35 South Chestnut, for those of you who haven't noticed it, we're now hard at work on the exhibits, which of course will be the heart and soul of the visitor experience there. And we want to make sure that these exhibits and the film we're going to produce and the programs that will happen at the museum once it's fully open will represent the incredible diversity of this county, both its people and all the different ways that we have found over centuries to use this land and still be here all together, trying to make our communities better and better. So it's so important. This particular grant is something that others should look at next year. They do it every year, this Rural Initiative Grant. And this is the Laura Jane Musser Fund, and they would fund probably something relating to food production that you all have been talking about. They especially are interested in rural counties and rural communities that to a great degree try to make their living off the land and have a diverse population. Good grief, that is us, And so it was a no-brainer to work on this grant. It's a very extensive one, but one of the hardest ones I think I've ever worked on. And one of the most critical parts of it is to have a letter of support from the entity, the municipality or whatever, in which the facility and the project is located. So I do want to mention that the board just recently decided to have what we're calling a very soft opening of the museum sometime in late October, and it will be open then for a few days a week up to the holiday period. And then the grand opening, when all the exhibits have been created, we're in the heavy research and design phase right now, and fabricated and installed, and the film has been produced, then we'll have this grand opening, hopefully in early spring of 2022. I know everybody wonders about that. So watch for an announcement that we'll try to get out there in every way possible for this soft opening, possibly the last Saturday in October, something like that. And that'll give everybody a chance to see this beautifully renovated building and see temporary displays and images and film programs that will help you imagine what this completed history museum is going to be. So thank you, City of Cortez, for your ongoing support over the last 5 years. We started at least 4 or 5 years ago asking for specific types of help from the city. Not always financial, but that has come through too and is so important. In fact, the City of Cortez, or the Cortez-related exhibits section, will definitely have a placard on there that shows the City of Cortez support. Does anybody have any questions? I know you want to move on to your next items.
No, I was just going to say thank you as the city's representative to the Cortez Historic Preservation Board. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing to preserve and share the history of Montezuma County and Cortez. And unless anybody else has anything to add.
All right. I just want to thank you for coming tonight, and the City of Cortez is very proud to offer a letter of support for your grant. And thank you for your dedication.
You all will be the first to know if they award it to us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, then I'd be happy to authorize the mayor, or make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the Montezuma County Historical Society Rural Initiative Grant application.
Second.
Rainey.
Aye.
Lucero.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Levy.
Aye. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm going to step over and pick it up if I may.
It's ready for you.
Since I have to send it in 2 days.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. City attorney's reports, any?
I don't have anything unless you have questions of me.
City manager report?
Yes, Mayor, I have a report for the council this evening. Here's the top 3 topics for the previous 2 weeks. We've already discussed the airport fly-in, but I have a little more information and detail for that. It was hosted this last Saturday by the Cortez Airport. There were various some vendors on hand, free sightseeing flights, and I was given a number of 110 passengers, over 50 show cars, 12 aircraft displays, and close to 30 fly-in aircraft. There was also news and radio coverage of the event. The event resulted in 80 additional sightseeing flights being booked. Attendance estimates range from 300 to 600. And as part of all that, I'd just like to thank Airport Manager Jeremy Patton and Efren Vaquera for their hard work and professionalism in putting this together. So actually, we're looking forward to next year already. So then the CIP program, or the Community Intervention Programs you're all familiar with, it was approved by the County Commission last week. As you probably know, this is a major milestone for the program. As a result of this, I've asked Chief Knuckles to work with our partners to arrange for that same presentation to be delivered to our council, and hopefully this next meeting in October. And as part of that, we will need to discuss with you what our financial commitment to that would be. Also, with the police department, the Citizen Academy, they held their first class session with their new Citizen Academy program this past week. There were 10 people who enrolled in the course this time. And I'd just like to say that I'm very proud of the police department for undertaking this program, since it has such wide-ranging benefits to help educate the public on what law enforcement actually does and the difficulties they encounter while protecting this community. This is also a great way to allow others to see inside the police department and interact with all levels of that agency. This program is very labor intensive, and so it will likely only occur once per year, but I know Chief Knuckles had mentioned in our meeting this morning that they're hoping to gain a little more support and some anticipation and perhaps a little larger classes by doing it once a year. And then I do have a quick just follow-up for council. The recruitment process for Public Works and the Parks and Recreation directors has already started. We've already had our on-site visits. Matt Kashner and I from HR have been working with the recruiter to get the announcements ironed out, so those should be going out very soon, but we just want to make sure that everything's in place and documented properly before those get blasted out. So with that, I'm open to any questions. If not, it's been a pleasure to present.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Drew. Are there any city council committee reports?
I'll go. So last week, City Manager Drew Sanders and then council members Arlena Yazzie, Robert Dobry, and I attended the Colorado Municipal League Conference in Westminster. Great conference, learned a lot, got to communicate and network with other communities, go to sessions. So I just wanted to touch on a little. So I'm bummed we missed the fly-in, but we were driving back from Denver that day, so otherwise I'm sure we all would have been there. We'll be there next year. when it's, but yeah, just attended one about economic development, one about how to outreach to the public if you're going to change. This example was like water rate changes and how to kind of approach the public and kind of incorporate their needs and concerns and and then also one on Colorado wildfires, and because that's always going to be on our mind. And then also, yeah, economic development. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't really plan anything, but it was a really great conference, and I'm looking forward to going next year as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? See, I attended the Zoom meeting for the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments. We had several grant application approvals for the Southwest COG DOLA grant, the Workforce Development Grant application, and the Regional Housing Planning Grant application. And we had a very informative regional housing study presentation by Heidi Agler from the Root Policy Research Group, and is a very in-depth study of the housing needs and requirements of the Southwest area. And if you have any more questions, there's a website. It's www.swccog, southwestcog.org. You can learn the details of this regional housing study presentation. And any other committee reports? See this, I'll read the workshop report. We had a presentation by Rachel Marchbank and Shaq Powers on Colorado COVID-19 Regional Resiliency and Recovery Roadmaps. And that basically concludes our evening. Thank you for attending tonight, and thank you for all your input and all your hard work and dedication. Good evening. I call this meeting adjourned. So you enjoyed that?
Yeah, well, we got to hang out with like Chad from Dolores,
Oh,
Queenie from
great.
Memphis.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah. When I went to